All right. Hi, everyone. Hi, girls. Welcome to the third week of the Shredders Adventure Series. For those of you that don't know us and are joining for the first time, I'm Anna, and these are my two little Shredders, and Sophie and Zoe. We're running this weekly series with inspirational female adventurers and athletes from now until April, until we get back on our bikes. And not to bring politics into our lovely, fun weekly calls, but I did want to specifically mention what a historic day today is, with Kamala Harris becoming the first woman vice president. Just a little shout out to all of you girls to remember that anything and everything is possible in your future. That's what these Adventure Series conversations are all about. You get to chat with and ask questions of awesome, inspirational women who have set really huge goals for themselves that might seem close to impossible when they first set them, but they work super hard and they dream big and they make those dreams become a reality. So don't forget that anything is possible. Whether you're wanting to become president of the United States, become a world champion and Olympian like our two previous guests, hike all 46 peaks in the Adirondacks in the fastest ever known time like today's guests, or you want to be the first 6-year-old to ever bunny hop over a big log in the Spa State Park. I hope you remember that anything is possible. So we always start out these calls with a little bit of not super exciting Zoom admin. I'll be letting folks into this call through the waiting room and also hanging out in the chat room to take all your questions. And this evening, please don't message Katie and Bethany. I know in the past you could message Tess. It's just me today. So message me in the chat room so we received your question. This call is all about you girls being able to ask Katie and Bethany questions about their lives as endurance athletes and adventurers. You can ask them about what they pack on their trips, what their favorite hike has been, what's next for them, anything. So feel free to raise your hand when you have a question, and I will call on you to unmute yourself or write or have your parent write a question in the chat box that we can ask Katie and Bethany if you prefer that. So without further ado, I introduce you to Katie Rhodes and Bethany Garretson. After the last 2 weeks of chatting about professional bike racing, it's lovely to have a slight change of pace and talk about something that's possible right in our own backyard in the Adirondacks. Maybe some of you have hiked one or two of the Adirondack peaks, and I bet Katie and Bethany would love to hear about your own expeditions of the Adirondacks. I don't know much about these women's stories prior to August of this year, and I'm hoping they'll tell us a little bit more about their lives, but these two incredible athletes' most recent success has been their completion and record-breaking hike, and I put hike in quotes because it's not a hike like you and I have done, girls, but we still call it a hike, record-breaking hike of all 46 Adirondack peaks, unsupported, meaning no driving, no food drops, nothing. They hiked them all from start to finish in 7 days, 4 hours and 50 minutes. Just incredible. I'd heard a little bit about this type of extreme hiking when talking to our very own Shredder dad and Grey Ghost Bicycles owner, Paul Fraunhofer, who might be on this call for a little bit. I know Shelby's on here, but Paul will be popping in and out of the call. He and his cousins broke the male record in August, so it's super cool to learn about the record-breaking story today from you both. To start out with, would you mind each introducing yourselves and telling us a little bit about how you got into hiking?
Yeah, absolutely. So awesome to be here. We have some visuals for you guys, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You should still be able to see us. There we go. All right, and let's see. Kick us off, B.
All right, so hi there, Shredders. I'm really excited to be here tonight with you. And my name is Bethany. I go by B. And these are some pictures of me. That's when I was a very, very little Shredder. I've always liked hats, apparently. And I am a professor at Paul Smith College. That's a school up in the Adirondacks. I teach environmental studies and recreation. I teach students things like how to camp and how to winter backpack. So I really love what I do. I also do a bit of writing. I'm also a mountaineer. So that one picture of me where I'm like a dark figure with a helmet on, that's out west on Mount Adams. And I've gone around the world and I've climbed different mountains. And I am a big advocate for environmental and social justice issues. So trying to make the world a better place. And like I said, I'm a lover of hats. I usually have a hat on. And I really enjoyed meeting Katie, and I'm excited to talk to you more about what we did.
Awesome. All right. My name's Katie Rhodes, or Katie. So my big girl job is as an industrial hygienist for SUNY Polytechnic down in Albany. What that means is that I'm responsible for mitigating what we call occupational hazards. So when people are at work and they're doing jobs that are dangerous, we want to make sure that they go home safe at the end of the day. So my job is to take a look at what they're doing and make sure that they're doing it safely so that they're not being exposed to harmful chemicals or radiation or high noise levels that can damage their hearing, things of that nature. So that's my full-time job. But on the side, I have a lot of things that I do related to hiking in the wilderness. One of them is I am the public education director for Adirondack Mountain Rescue. So they are a search and rescue team out of Clifton Park, New York. And what we do is respond to calls from the DEC if somebody is distressed or missing or injured, either in the Adirondacks or other regions of New York. They'll call us out if they need additional help, and then we respond to that. So I do field search and rescue, and then I also act as that public education personnel. So I engage with the public, and I try to teach people about hiking safely and mountaineering skills and managing layers in cold weather and things like that to make sure that they don't get in trouble in the first place, so we never have to go rescue them. I'm also a New York State licensed hiking guide, so I do take people out and make sure that they are doing their trips safely and with confidence and teach them skills while I'm out there. So that's something I get to do on the side and get paid to do, and that's kind of a dream job. And I'm also a leave no trace trainer. So leave no trace is a really important concept. We want to make sure that the wild places that we love continue to be wild and continue to be healthy. And the way that we do that is by understanding how our actions can impact the environment around us and making sure that we make as little impact as possible when we're out doing the things that we love, whether it's in the mountains or on the water, or even in your local park. There's, leave no trace for urban areas as well. I am an advocate as well. I mostly focus on mental health. That's something that we brought into our climb of the 46 high peaks for the FKT. We actually raised money for the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. Our initial goal was $500, and we ended up raising over $4,000 for that organization. So that was a really awesome thing that came in addition to getting the FKT that we did. And last but not least, on a personal level, I'm a homesteader and a fur baby mama. So you can see my two main kiddos there. Up top is my Black Lab Hound mix. She's a rescue from a high kill shelter. Her name's Avery. She's my bestie. And then down below is my little dude, Luke. He's my kitten. He likes to drool, as you can see, and lay on top of me. So they make life interesting. And then they also help take care of things here on our homestead. So we have chickens, and we have a very large garden. We have an orchard, and we have a barn that we're going to be putting goats and ducks into this coming year. So what we're hoping to do is build a life for ourselves, my husband and I, where we are self-sustaining as much as possible. We're growing our own food, we're living off the land, and we're also making the land around us healthier as a result of caring for it in an appropriate way. So that's me. And that's a little me up top. Apparently I was into hats too. This is why we're friends.
Nice. Yes, that's why we get along. Sweet.
Yep, hats and jasmine.
Yep.
That was my jam. All right.
Yep.
So I know that we had some hands up right from the go. Anna, did we want to do questions throughout, or do you want to wait till the end on that?
Yeah, that's a good. Why don't you go ahead and present, and then
Okay.
Yeah, and then
All right. Yep. So I'll hop right into this. The 46 high peaks. Give us a wave if you've ever hiked a high peak or you know where the high peaks are. we got some waves. They're not far from you guys. And so there are 46 high peaks that technically are above 4,000 feet. There's a few today that we know aren't above that. But when Verplanck Colvin did the surveying in the 1800s, he found 46. The first 46ers were Herb Clark and Bob and George Marshall, and they did it from 1918 to 1924, so almost 100 years ago, pretty much. And Grace is number 9. She's the first female, and she was a big part of the 46 Society while she was alive. And it is a huge challenge to climb all. And if you do, you become called a 46er. It's a challenge. And today it is growing like wildfire. A lot of people are doing it. Not as many in the winter. There's still less than 1,000 registered winter 46ers, but we're pushing 13,000 registered 46ers. And like I said, there's thousands of people today who are finding the high peaks and they are becoming 46ers. And my mom is sitting next to me here. She's climbed two high peaks, and I have an uncle who's done all 46 and a cousin who's working on her 46. So it's a really great piece of history. The Adirondack Park is amazing, and we have this place that's protected environmentally and people can come and recreate. Next slide.
Right. So when you're on trail, it's super, super important that you recognize that you are asking your body to do something pretty awesome to walk you up a mountain. And that takes a lot of energy. So it's really important that you fuel yourself properly. So we put together a quick video. I should say B put together a quick video. I helped film a little bit, but she's the mastermind behind the video editing. Just to kind of go through a little bit of how we fuel ourselves, what that looks like on trail, and, you know, some tips that we have. All right.
So Katie and I are headed out for a day hike, and when you go on a day hike, you want a great balance of fat, protein, and carbs. So whenever you're headed out, either backpacking or day hiking, you want to bring good food with you. So one of the things I really like to do, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with banana in the middle, and then I pack it into my lunch bag. And I also bring cheese for more protein. Nuts are great protein as well. Katie makes an amazing granola and granola bar, Toganola, and I put it right into a yogurt container. This is my breakfast in the morning. I make one big parfait that I just keep eating for a few days.
So the other thing that we want to make sure that we talk about is calorie intake. So in society today, sometimes we're influenced or we feel like we need to restrict our calorie intake, restrict our fat intake. You know, there's issues around mentality around bodies and things like that. But it's so important. Anytime you're exerting yourself, you're hiking, you're doing outdoor activities, you need to recognize that you need fuel in your body. It's just like when you put gas into the car, when your parents put gas into the car, if the car stalls on the side of the road, they're not going to be mad at the car because it stopped because they didn't give it gas. So it's the same thing with your body. You can't be upset at yourself if you're not performing well, if you're not hiking well, if you're not giving yourself the calories you need. So make sure you're eating on trail. You're not trying to restrict how much you're eating. Listen to your body. Whenever it's hungry, give it fuel. Before it's hungry, give it fuel so that you have that to tap into. And also don't be afraid of healthy fats. Healthy fats are good. So make sure that you're bringing things that are going to supply healthy fats and carbohydrates, and just some simple sugars. And that doesn't necessarily have to be candy. It can be things like fruit, or, you know, even if it's dehydrated fruit, and that sort of thing, just to make sure that you have that instant energy, and then the fat and the protein is going to keep you going long term.
Through hike, we used a bear canister. You have to pack your food into bear canisters when you camp in the high peaks during the summertime, because we do have black bears. We actually have a lot of black bears, and they're really not going to bother you, but they will go after your food. These canisters also really help keeping mice and chipmunks out, because they love to go after Katie's Tasty Granola.
All right. Very cool. Let's see. Whoops. One second.
So Katie and
There we go. Okay. Wasn't cooperating for a second.
Yeah, great job. Great job. So we'll get right into it, what we did. And so Katie and I have, to our knowledge, become the first women to ever complete the unsupported thru hike. And what that is, we hiked all 46 high peaks, point A to point B. It was roughly 183 miles and 65,000 feet of elevation gain, which, if you look at the little graphic there, is 5 times Mount Everest. So Mount Everest is the tallest mountain in the world, and we did 5.5 times that just with elevation gain. We averaged about a marathon a day, and we have the 3rd fastest time right now. And I want to give a shout out to, sounds like one of your dads or Paul, definitely a guy who's involved in the Saratoga Shredders, Paul and Dan Fraunhofer and Mike Jaworski. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced any names there. They have the fastest known time of 6 days, 5 hours, and 40 minutes. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this FKT, so fastest known time, is because I had played soccer and basketball when I was in high school and college, and I was looking for the next sport. And I was living in the Adirondacks, and that's when I started hiking the high peaks. And I heard of 2 guys who had just completed this, and I thought it was a really awesome goal to work towards. And on that note, I want to give a shout out to some CVS Cherry Valley Springfield senior girls who are watching too, because this is all about female empowerment and getting into sports and staying in sports. So here we go. We're going to go day by day with you.
Yeah. And one thing I also just want to mention before we move on is when Paul, Dan, and Mike completed their FKT and set the new fastest time, that was back in June of this last year, over the summer. I remember when I saw that the first article about that, and I was sitting on my couch, and obviously I was an avid hiker at the time. I hadn't done any major FKTs yet, but I remember seeing that article for the first time and reading about Paul and Dan and Mike and what they had done and how fast they had done it. And I sat there and I thought to myself, wow, that's so amazing. I could never do anything like that. And then, 2.5 months later, I did that exact thing. So, just, it's so easy to doubt your abilities and see something really incredible and think, oh, well, that's something that someone else is doing, but you are capable. And if you want something, then you can obtain it. You just have to put in the work. So, I learned a valuable lesson about self-doubt and just about believing in myself with that situation. So we're going to keep this kind of high level with the trip itself. But if you guys have specific questions, we can always go back to the day that you're wondering about and dive in a little bit deeper if that's what you want to do. So day 1, we started out on the west side of the Adirondacks. So traditionally, when you do the thru hike, you start in the west in the Seward Range, and then you start moving northeast from there. So Seward was the first mountain that we summited. And to be honest, it was kind of a tough summit. And I thought to myself, oh no, what have I gotten myself into? Because we were so excited, we pretty much tried to run up the mountain. But you quickly learn to settle down and that it's a marathon and not a sprint. And you get into the groove of things. So we got through the Seward Range. So that's Seward, Donaldson, and Emmons. We came back down, we went over to Seymour, and those were our 4 peaks for the first day. And we shook out the nerves and we were feeling pretty good by the end of the day. All right. Before we keep moving on to talk about our journey itself, we did want to touch on gear real quick. So obviously there was some really specific gear that we brought on our trip. One of the most important things that we brought was our tent. So we do have a little video clip for you that just kind of shows you what that looks like and how we slept each night. So I'll play that real quick, and then B, I'll let you interject after that with anything you want to add.
Who's in the tent? Oh, I see something. Oh,
Hey guys!
it's a Katie! It's a Katie!
It's really roomy in here. Come on in.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the tent we slept in.
I mean, it's basically a mansion. We had so much room, we didn't know what to do with it. No, I'm kidding. This is a ultralight 2-person tent, and it's only big enough to literally fit 2 people laying down next to each other.
First time we got in here, it was definitely a little claustrophobic. It's not too big.
No,
but it's big enough.
it's cozy.
It's cozy.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, it warms up fast in here. You don't realize when you're inside.
No. All right, bedtime.
Yeah.
Wake up. Hike.
Do it
Wake
again.
up. Again. Again.
Home sweet home. You're so comfy.
Awesome. So that's, whoop, trying to play it again here.
Yeah.
So that was the very large mansion-like tent that we used on our thru hike.
Yeah, so you can tell that to do something like this with someone else, you have to get along with them. So Katie and I were best buds, and we have a lot of fun together. So that makes it really enjoyable. And I like this quote that we have here on this slide: failing to plan is planning to fail. And with these expeditions, you have to get just about everything right to have that little bit of wiggle room if something doesn't work. We used every piece of gear we took. We went very Spartan. So we were like just sleeping on half of a ground pad and sleeping on our pack. Our packs weighed about 30 pounds, and half of that was food weight. So took one outfit to wear during the day, and then had a sleeping outfit and a change of socks, and took a teeny tiny toothbrush, and really didn't take anything extra. So I think, Katie, we can go right into the days again. And if they have more gear questions, we'll answer it later.
Yes, definitely. All right. You want to take day 2, B?
Yeah. So day 2, we were in the Santanoni range, and it was such a beautiful morning. That top photo of Katie looking out, that's on Panther. And it had been a cloudy morning with almost a little bit of rain, like a few raindrops. And we got up on Panther and we were above the clouds, and they started to clear, and it was so beautiful. So we did Panther, Cooch, and Santanoni. And then we dropped down and walked over to Allen, which Allen is pretty far out. This was a big mile day, about 30 or 30 plus. And we got to see the sunset on the Allen slide, and it was really, really beautiful. So one thing we both enjoyed about this expedition was the sunrises and the sunsets, and just being out in nature for a full week.
All right, day 3. Day 3 was a really big day for us. It was one of the days that made me a little bit nervous when I kind of looked at the itinerary ahead of time. So we did 9 peaks, and again, we did over 30 miles on this day. This is known as the Lojo Loop that we did on this day. So if you guys have hiked some of the more popular high peaks from the lodge, that's kind of how this loop is named. It's all the peaks that you can hit essentially easily from the lodge. And the big thing with this day is that you're ascending ranges and then completely descending, and then ascending another range, completely descending, ascending a third range, completely descending. So the elevation gain is pretty extreme. But you know, we went out and we started our day early. We set up camp ahead of time so that we could just come back to camp and just fall into our sleeping bags and go to sleep, which is exactly what we ended up doing. And then we set out for the day. And before we even hit our first peak, I was climbing a wooden ladder on a steep section. And I was just rushing, and I was excited about the day. And I ended up slipping and slamming both of my kneecaps into the top rung of the ladder. And that did not feel good. And I actually ended up bruising my kneecaps for the rest of the trip. So, lesson learned there, rushing, does not necessarily make things go smoother or faster. Slow is fast in some cases. So I was okay though. We continued on. We summited 6 of our peaks before sunset. And then on Phelps, we got this beautiful sunset. So that was just a lovely way to keep us going. And then unfortunately, we still had 2 more peaks to do after the sun had set in the dark. And by the end of this day, I was pretty tired. And I was kind of slogging along. And that's really where partnership comes in. When one person's feeling tired and feeling down, the other person steps up and kind of takes lead. And that's exactly what happened. I told Bethany, I'm feeling pretty beat down right now. I'm just going to follow your feet. And she took the lead and, just got us back to camp. And we got into camp. We started our hike around, I think it was 5 a.m. that day, and we got back into camp just after midnight. So it was a long day of hiking.
So day 4 was our epic day, and it's the point in the movie where the movie starts and it's this crazy storm, and it's exactly what we were caught in. And day 4, we were on pace for the overall record up to this point, and we started the day. The day did not start in rain, so let me just backtrack a little bit here. We woke up, we got on trail, we hiked 2 mountains, Cliff and Redfield, and then we started up towards Marcy, and we got another 2, Gray and Skylight. Still no rain yet. And when we were coming up Marcy, which is the highest mountain in New York State, we started to have these very intense winds. And it was also cold that day. So it's a cold, windy rain. And by the time we were coming off of Marcy, it was pouring and we were getting wet from just about every direction. So going back to gear and the weight of our pack, we were choosing to leave things behind. So we made the decision earlier on that we weren't going to bring rain pants, for example, to save weight. So we did get pretty wet, and we dropped down to a lean-to shelter to dry out our gear and also to stay safe. We could have continued to push on, and it was very cold. We were very wet. You're also very fatigued. So we made the call that if we really wanted to stay in it and just be one day later than what we had planned, we needed a lean-to and we needed to dry out. And that's what we did. And Katie and I just kind of cuddled in the corner while our stuff dried that night. And we were very lucky because there was a good wind coming up to Slant Rock Lean-to. And that was a hard day because we had to let go of the overall record and make peace with that and stay safe. So we really were proud of ourselves. We made the right call and we were able to continue.
And there's a very real mental phenomena that happens with people that's called summit fever. And I talk about this a lot in my public education, because this is how hikers a lot of times will get themselves in trouble. Is they have a goal in mind. Usually it's, I want to get to the summit of a mountain. And they put in a bunch of work at this point that, maybe they're halfway there or they're 3/4 of the way there. And then something happens. They fall into a river and they get really wet, or a storm rolls in unexpectedly, whatever it is, something happens that's a red flag, as we call it, that's telling them to turn around, but they don't want to, or they refuse to because they have this goal in mind. And we did have a moment where we didn't want to lose the overall FKT, and we did consider continuing on, even though we knew it was dangerous. And then we checked ourselves and we said, you know what, no, this isn't the safe choice and we're not going to make it. So that's important to think about when you're out, whether you're out on your bike or you're out hiking or kayaking or whatever you're doing. Look for those red flags. And if they come up, that's okay. You can always turn around. The mountains, the lake, the trail will always be there next time. All right. So day 5, we woke up and it was still pretty cloudy from the previous day's storms, and we were feeling a little down. But we got on trail and we started hiking. And then after a few peaks that day, the sun came out and it ended up being a brilliant bluebird day. The last of our stuff dried out while we were up on the ridge, hiking the Great Range Traverse, as they call it. And we got some beautiful views, as you can see. You can, just see as far as the eye can possibly see up there on the Great Range. All the other peaks that, low peaks, high peaks, other peaks we're going to be hiking. So it's a very empowering feeling. And we just kind of started to hit our stride. And apparently at some point we decided that we were going to make an album, and that's going to be a cover photo in the bottom right there. We haven't actually produced any music for it yet, but that's definitely going to be it.
We love our sunglasses. We love them.
Yeah.
So day 6, yeah. Day 6, we did 9 mountains, and we started with Colvin Blake, then went up Nippletop Dial, and then we did a bushwhack. So bushwhacking, does anyone know what bushwhacking means? Or if you know what it is, just raise your hand. It's where you go off trail and you go right into the woods and you use map and compass, or you use a GPS app to help you get from one section to another. So we bushwhacked from Dial to the Dix Range, and the Dix Range has 5 mountains, and the bottom picture is the sunset. And if you look at that, it's very hazy, and that's when the fires were burning out west in California. And Katie and I, at this point, we had been on trail for 6 days. We didn't really know what was going on in the world. We don't have much contact at all, other than sometimes we would send out a text to let people know where we were and to update them. And we looked at that sunset and we're like, wow, that looks really neat. And that's really amazing. And that was because of the fires out west. And so in the Dix Range, you have Dix, Huff, South Dix, Macomb, and Grace, which is named after Grace, the 9th 46er.
Yeah, we love Grace Peak.
Yes,
one of our
special.
favorite. Very special. All right. So the next day, we dropped off Grace, and then the next day we woke up and we walked out. And this is kind of the part of the thru hike where a lot of people are like, well, yeah, but how did you get from this mountain to this mountain? Because they know that there's a lot of road in between some of these mountains. There's 1 or 2 here, and then there's a long drive, and there's 1 or 2 here. And the answer is we walked to all of these mountains. We never stepped foot in a car. And that's kind of hard for some people to wrap their heads around, because some of these walks on the road are quite long. For example, on the last day, the road walk, I think, is 9 miles to Whiteface and Esther, to our final 2 peaks. But that's what we did. We put our packs on our backs and we just kept walking. It was just on road sometimes instead of trail during this section. So we headed down to the road, walked down to Giant and Rocky Peak Ridge. And you can see there we have our 46 Climbs bandana. So when I talked about earlier, the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, that organization hosts 46 Climbs event, is what it's called, every year. It originated in the high peaks, but it's now worldwide. And what they do is they challenge you to choose a mountain or mountains to commit to hiking, and using that as an advocacy tool to fundraise for the organization. And we just really thought it was cool because we had planned on hiking all 46 peaks in this thru hike manner, and it was called 46 Climbs. And I actually have a brother who took his own life. And so, suicide awareness and prevention is an important topic to me. So we decided to go ahead and do this fundraiser. And like I said, we ended up raising over $4,000. So that was a really cool piece of it. And we made sure we got photos throughout the time we were on trail, and we tagged them on social media and things like that. And people were pretty receptive to it and excited about it. From there, we got back down to the road. We did some more road walking right through Keene Valley, over to Big Slide. We summited Big Slide, and at this point, the sun was going down. And the coolest thing about Big Slide is as you're coming across what they call the brothers, so there's some smaller peaks as you are coming up Big Slide to summit, you can see all of the high peaks that we had already hiked. So this is the Great Range view that you can see on the left-hand side there. And we'd already been to the top of all of those mountains on our journey. So that's a really rewarding moment there for us. So like I said, the sun was starting to come down after we summited Big Slide. And at this point, we're going into our last bushwhack. And like Bethany talked about, a bushwhack is where you literally just, you walk off trail into the woods. And sometimes it's really thick and you can't see anything in front of you. And sometimes it opens up a little bit, but you have to know which direction to walk in, and you have to have confidence just to walk into the woods. And it can be very disorienting. And we were a little bit concerned because it was night. It was dark at this point, and the only thing we could see was what was lit up by our headlamps in front of us. But it ended up being a really fun and spiritual experience. Just kind of having that bubble of light in front of you, and you just walk into the woods. And we knew exactly, where we needed to walk. We knew which direction we were headed in. And so we just set out, and we scrambled through any terrain that we found, and the owls were hooting around us, and we were the only people out there, and it was just very still and special. And, we were the only ones experiencing that night. So that was a really cool feeling. Around 11 p.m., we got to the summit of Porter, and then we headed over to Cascade, and we could see the lights of Lake Placid down below from the summit of Cascade. And then we dropped down from Cascade. And for our last night on trail, it was a beautiful night. It was pretty warm. It was probably like mid 40s or 50s. And so we decided to do what they call cowboy camping or cowgirl camping, in this case, if you will. And so what that means is that instead of setting up a tent, we just found like a really nice, soft, kind of mossy area that was relatively flat, 150 feet off trail, because that's the regulation. Just so you're not on top of the trail sleeping and being disruptive to other visitors. And so we laid down on the moss with our sleeping bags and our pads, and we just went to sleep, and we could see the stars up over our heads as we fell asleep that night.
All right, so we're on our last day, and I know we're getting close to like our time, and we want to take your questions, so I'm just going to go quick through this so we can get to the video. We had Whiteface that day, so we walked from Cascade over to Whiteface, a lot of road walking, and then Esther was our final mountain, and that was really special because Esther McComb, young girl at the age of 14, she climbed it in 1839. And if you see we're going to show you the video of the finish, but some of my Paul Smith students came out, and a lot of people we loved came out to welcome us out of the woods. So let's show the video, and then we're going to take your questions.
Awesome.
Well, this week on the 46 of 46 podcast, I'll be back inside our beloved high peaks to hear the story of the first officially documented female unsupported thru hike of the 46 high peaks here in the ADK. In case you're not aware, an unsupported thru hike means they hiked all 46 high peaks without any support from outside people and as a thru hike, meaning once they entered the high peaks wilderness, they stayed in the woods until they were done. No cars to drive them to other trailheads, just into the woods, hike, camp, repeat, until they summited all 46 high peaks. A truly incredible feat. And since this is the first officially documented unsupported female thru hike, the two ladies set the first FKT of the route, completing all 46 high peaks in 7 days, 4 hours, and 50 minutes. Starting on September 9th, 2020 at 10:15 a.m. in the Seward Range, and finishing on September 17th at 3:05 p.m. on Whiteface and Esther. So a big congratulations to Bethany Garretson and Katie Rhodes on completing their thru hike.
And we got a lot of great food at the end. We ate
so
all of our food,
Yep.
and it was amazing. Bread, cookies. So dream big. And
46 of 46 podcast.
Oops, sorry about that. There we go.
yeah.
I think I did that on every video. Whoopsie.
That was incredible, Katie and Bethany. That just the actual feat of accomplishing and having that time, that very quick time of 7 days and 4 hours is unbelievable. But also to have raised $4,000 for such an incredible organization is wild. So thank you for sharing that. It's quite a story. So we have a lot of questions.
Awesome.
So
Yes.
we are going to start at the top. So we'll start with Lily, and then we'll go to Emma and Liddy. Okay.
So I know how like you just can't go and hike 46 high peaks in 7 days. So how did you guys train?
Okay, that's a great question. So Katie and I do a lot of hiking, about 50 miles a week. So we're hiking a lot, we're backpacking a lot. We also strength train. So get in the gym, do runs, also cross train. So biking is a great cross training tool to use. It strengthens your legs. Really, we just get out there and we've done a lot of this. And at the end of the day, it's still really hard. And that's why it was awesome to have a teammate in this, because there were times that both of us were tired and didn't want to keep doing it, but we did.
Yeah, it was a great question.
Yeah, great question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Emma and Liddy, any question?
How old were you when you started hiking?
Good question. So I actually didn't discover hiking until I was in college, which I went to college a little bit early. So I was actually 16 at the time, but it did take me a long time to discover hiking and that I loved it. It wasn't something that I did growing up, and I actually wasn't an athlete growing up. I, tried to get out of the 1 mile run in gym class, and I couldn't do a push up, and I couldn't do a sit up, and I'd never played a sport. And, I just kind of was a stagnant. I like to, walk around in the woods with my dad, but that was about it. I didn't actually do anything super physical. And then when I found hiking, I just fell in love with it, and it took off from there. But it just goes to show, even if you're not an athlete right now, that's not a requirement for becoming one, if you decide that's what you want to do.
How old were you, Katie, when you started?
16.
16. Oh, yeah. So I started when I was 23. Officially, that's when I started hiking. I was 23, so it was after college. But I grew up in Cherry Valley, New York, which is very farm country. And I would walk from my house to my grandparents' house, to my aunts and uncle's house through the woods. So maybe when I was little, I was a hiker too. I was walking a lot. So that is just what I did. So 23.
Hiking's just walking in the woods.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for that question. I like your hat.
Thank you.
Isabella is next, and then Ruby, please.
So when you decided to go for hikes, how did you decide to go together?
Oh,
That's a great question.
So Bethany and I actually have not known each other very long. Most people assume that we've known each other a long time, but we only met this summer because I was thinking about possibly hiking all 46, not in a fast way, but just to see if I could do all 46. I didn't have the self-confidence at the time to think I could do it very quickly. And I found her name online associated with some other FKTs. And so I decided to reach out to her, and she was really receptive of it. And we started hiking together. And we actually were telling Anna this story earlier. The third day that we hiked together, we actually found a distressed hiker. So there was a person that he didn't know his way on the trails, and he got lost, and he got off trail. and a big storm came through, and it was a very cold night. And so he actually ended up getting hypothermia, which is what happens when your body gets very cold, and it can't cope and it can't warm itself back up, and it can be a really dangerous situation. So we were asleep after hiking all day in a lean-to, and when the storm stopped, it got quiet enough that we could hear him calling for help. And so Bethany and I, again, we'd only hiked together a few days, and we'd only known each other for like a week or two at that point, talking online. We knew we had to do something about it. So we went out and we found the hiker, and we brought him back, and we warmed him up. And then we realized that the rangers were out looking for him in the storm, and that could be dangerous for them. And now that he was safe, we wanted to make sure that they knew that, so that they weren't endangering themselves anymore. So we knew we had service on a nearby high peak. So we reclimbed that high peak at midnight that night. And we got cell service, and we called the DEC, and we let them know what was going on so that they could come get him in the morning. And that's kind of when we decided that, hey, we're really good partners. We barely know each other, and we pulled this off, and it was very smooth, and we did it safely. And so we should probably do something cool together. We should go for FKT.
Yeah. And I was looking for a teammate. I had tried to do it in 2016, and I got to day 5 and I had to drop out because of really high temperatures, and I was doing it by myself, and I was struggling doing it by myself. And so when Katie reached out to me, I was really excited to have that team member, and the rest is history.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Isabel.
All right, Ruby, and then the Hoffmans.
So I have 2 questions. One is, what did you pack when you hiked?
Yeah, so we packed, well, I'll break it down. Clothing. So again, just like something that you wore during the day, and then something you wore at night. So we were smelly. We smelled, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So clothing, food, packed about 2 pounds of food a day. So about 15 pounds of food, your water and hydration. So your iodine to treat the water, and then your sleeping camping stuff. So tent, sleeping bag, sleeping pad, trekking poles, sunglasses. That's about it. Toilet paper.
Bare minimum.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
And my second question is, like, how much time did it take you to hike one mountain?
That really depended on the mountain and the mileage, but we tried to average around 2 miles per hour. So, we'd wake up in the morning, and our first mountain, we'd usually reach the summit within like 5 to 10 miles, depending on where we were and where we were going. So at 2 miles per hour, that was like 2.5 to, 2.5 plus hours to reach the summit of the first mountain for the day.
Yeah. Some of the mountains are really close together. So it's like boom, boom, boom within 2 hours sometimes. And then there's some that are just really spread out, and it might take you half the day. So that's a great question, and it was different every day.
Thank you.
All right, Hoffmans.
What was the feeling? Sorry. What was the feeling you got like by the time you climbed each mountain? Like, what feeling did you get? And when you got done hiking all 46 of them?
That's a good one. So I love being on the summits. It's one of my favorite places to be. The feeling I get is happiness. I get really happy when I get on a summit, and I'm really proud of myself for getting up there. And even if my body is hurting a little bit, I don't feel it on the summit. And at the end, it was just this moment of great accomplishment because I had been thinking about this hike for almost 10 years. And it was a dream come true. And in the moment, I was hungry and I just wanted to eat some cookies and bread and salad. Like, I miss fruit and vegetables the most when I hike because the food we take, a lot of it is dehydrated. So meaning that you just add water to it and then it hydrates, like mashed potatoes. If you get the mashed potato flakes. So I was proud, I was happy. Those are the main emotions I had.
Definitely. And there were some times on trail too where you know, we were a little bit emotional too, you know, because you're pushing your body so hard that sometimes things that are buried inside, emotions that are buried inside, will just kind of bubble up to the surface. So there were times where, you know, you'd get to the summit and the view would be so beautiful that you'd be overcome by emotion and you would just start tearing up. And then there were other times where it was just, you were so tired and beat down that you would just start feeling emotional. And that's, you know, again, where the partnership comes in and we kind of lift each other up and keep each other going and get refocused and that sort of thing. But at the end, I thought I was going to cry a lot at the end. And you end up just being so elated that you're done that you don't even think to cry. We were just all smiles. We were just grinning, you know.
Very tired too, like very tired. I went to bed that night at 6 p.m. and I slept for 15 hours. So
yeah,
I just wanted to sleep. I wanted to shower and eat.
So speaking of sleeping, we have a question about sleep. The first part of the question is where do you sleep on the trail? Are there certain designated campsites where you need to camp, or can you just wild camp? And then the second part of that question is how much did you generally sleep every night of the FKT hike?
Yeah, great question. So we wanted to average 6 hours of sleep a night, and that's what we did in the beginning, if not a little bit more. And then our last night, we had 3 hours of sleep. And we wanted 6 hours in the beginning just for our bodies to be able to repair themselves and for us to stay strong for the next day. So some people do it on a little less sleep, but you know, we wanted to just take care of our bodies early on. And then you are looking for designated camping sites. And we had a camping site every night except for the last night when we just got off trail, rolled out our pads, put our sleeping bags down and slept for 3 hours, got up and finished.
Nice. Awesome. Zoe, you had a question.
Do you see any animals and which ones?
You know what? We didn't see a lot of wildlife. I was actually really surprised how little wildlife that we saw. You always kind of see deer around Lake Road, like white-tailed deer are pretty prevalent in that area. And then what we call mini bears. So things like chipmunks and squirrels and kangaroo mice and things like that. They're around. They don't necessarily show themselves a lot, except some of the chipmunks are a little bit bold. They will show themselves. But for the most part, they are just waiting for you to walk away from your food for a second so that they can steal it. And they did successfully steal some granola from me on occasions.
Yeah, they bite right through your pack when you set it down. And we would get back to our packs and Katie would be like, they got my granola again. They were really going after it.
Yeah.
Katie, can you tell us for a minute about your company, your granola company?
Yeah, sure. So my husband and I own a small business. It's called Toganola Snack Company. So we're based near Saratoga Springs. So Toganola, Saratoga granola. And it's just the two of us and we just produce as home processors. We make loose granola clusters. We make granola bars, nut butter filled, what we call protein bombs. So they're like a granola based exterior with nut butters on the inside. And then
they're really good.
They are really good. Yeah, I'll toot my own horn on that one.
Absolutely. I've certainly had some of your products. I didn't realize it was you until we started this conversation a couple weeks ago. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely. We sell at the farmers markets in Saratoga, Bolton Landing, kind of this entire region. We try to be at as many farmers markets as we can, and we have an online store. And we really just try to gear towards outdoor, people doing outdoor activities. So hikers, mountain bikers, rock climbers, that sort of thing. Because, we want to make sure that we're providing efficient fuel for people who are pushing their bodies and doing cool outdoor activities. So that's really what we're all about. We use clean ingredients and we try to support other local businesses as much as possible. But you can pronounce everything on our label. So that makes me feel really good.
Absolutely. A little small ingredient list that you can pronounce is very important, right? And I don't know if you know this about the Saratoga Shredders, but they really like their snacks. so it's good to know about another snack, a very healthy snack company that we can support. So we appreciate you taking the time to make those products for the rest of us to enjoy for our fueling. And Sophie, you had a question.
Which mountain did you like the most?
Ooh. That's a good one. That's a good one.
That's really tough. I'm going to say that
like the view of it, but it also involves the experience on each of those.
Yeah, it does.
Associated with it.
Yeah. So for me, day 2 was my day. I was just loving life. Day 2, I was on top of the world. I had all the endorphins. I wasn't fatigued yet, so I was rocking and rolling. So probably either Panther, which we showed you guys the photo. We actually had a cloud inversion, is what it's called, or a temperature inversion on the shoulder of Panther as we were coming back down. And what that means is that the air below the clouds is actually cooler than the air above the clouds, which is the opposite of how it normally is. And what happens is the clouds kind of form just like this beautiful layer, and the tops of the peaks come up out of the clouds, and it just kind of lays there like a bed across the mountains, and it looks really, really beautiful. So that's kind of a cool like weather situation that we had there. And the view is just so beautiful, and it felt like we were literally standing in the heavens. And that was one of those moments I talked about earlier, how, you get these moments when you're exerting yourself like that, where these emotions bubble up. And for me, that was a moment where I just kind of got emotional for a second. And then I was like, it's only day 2, get it together, and we got to keep going, so.
And yeah, and mine would have been Colden and Cascade, because we hit those mountains late at night, almost around midnight. And I love hiking in the dark. It reminds me of being on really tall mountains. And you also get to see the lights. So looking down at Lake Placid, you see all these lights, and it's really pretty. And I love it. So those are my favorite, Colden and Cascade.
That's awesome. Thank you. Zoe had another question.
Do you get any prizes or medals after you've done all of the peaks?
That's awesome. That's awesome. We were so humbled, and we were so grateful for what we got. To us, that was our gold medal. Now, we didn't really get a gold medal. However, we have been able to do things like this, with the shredders. We get to do presentations. We did a lot of interviews. We, got on TV and things like that. And so you get on a website too called the Fastest Known Time website. And I guess that's kind of like a medal. And
right.
Yeah. And we also, for 46 climbs, we did the most mileage and elevation gain. So we did get some gear from them and some prizes from them. So we've just been overwhelmed and blown away, and it's been a really positive experience. So yes, I think we have our gold medals.
The FKT website might be an interesting place for the girls to check out, because it's all different sports, correct? It's not just hiking or just biking. Is it cover a variety of sports, correct?
It does. The one that we're on it's mainly focused on foot
Oh, okay.
So running or hiking. And then there's also climbing FKTs, and I'm not sure where they're kept because like the climbers out west, California, El Cap, like that's a pretty popular route that people do. So they try to focus on this site just foot. And we can send a link to you, fastestknowntime.com. You can look up routes, you can look up athletes and see what we're up to.
That's very cool. So
And
we
our
have,
whole trip report is up on associated with our page for our FKT. So if you guys are like looking for detailed accounts, or you're thinking about trying to do part of the through hike, or you want to know, you know, exactly what we did and when, that sort of thing, that the full trip report write up is right in there.
Yeah. And I'll say one more thing too about the FKTs, because you're biker chicks, you know, there is a category where you can bike from mountain to mountain and then you climb them and then you get back on your bike and you do it that way too. So there's some challenges like that across the country and in the Adirondacks. And I think that's super cool to do the combo of biking and hiking.
Events, yeah. Very cool. All right, we've got 2 questions and then we should probably wrap up because it's after 6 now. Kiddos are going to be having dinner probably.
Yes.
So we have Emma and Liddy have one more question and Lily has one more question and then we'll.
Okay.
Did you forget, Emma and Liddy? Do you remember your question?
Yes. What is a good high peak to start with if you're a kid?
That's such a great question.
Yeah.
So I would recommend doing Phelps. A lot of people will do Cascade Porter for the first one, and I'm just going to be different. And Phelps, I would really recommend for you to do. And it's beautiful. Or Wright, Phelps or Wright. And you can also do Cascade Porter. But those are the most kid friendly. And I would always give you some advice of go out and do some smaller ones too. Like Hurricane is a really beautiful, it's not a high peak, but it's a great view. And there's some other ones in your, like not too far from you guys.
Yep. Start small and work up. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. And Lily, last question.
If you could pick one piece of gear that you have, what would be the piece of gear that you would pick to hike with?
Like our favorite piece of gear.
I know mine.
Okay, you go, and I'm gonna think about it.
All right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, your gooders. Yeah. Yep.
That's mine. Sunglasses on trail. They help protect your eyes from the sun, but also from, you walk through a lot of like trees. So like they protect your eyes too from getting poked all the time. So I love my sunglasses. So
She is so in love with her sunglasses, she doesn't take them off even at night.
Yep. Sometimes, yeah. Well, we were just hiking the other day and I wanted to keep them on as long as I could, and it was about 5 o'clock. And I was like, it's dark now, so gotta take them off. But they're also a very like year-round piece of gear. So besides my shoes would be my second. I love my La Sportiva trail runners. So that would be my second. Glasses, shoes.
Yeah. Mine would probably be my buff. So you probably saw it in some of the pictures that we showed you. Sometimes we wore it around our necks, and sometimes we wore it around our heads, kind of as a headband. On the cooler mornings and evenings, we put it over our ears. It would keep our ears warm. When it got warmed up a little bit, we'd, pull it back, and it would keep our hair out of our faces. If we were passing people on the trail and we wanted to, just make ourselves and them more comfortable, because it was, during the pandemic that we did this and we tried to do it responsibly. We would pull it down, around our necks and pull it up over our noses and use them as masks. So they are like very multi-use, and I love my buff, and we both got kind of attached to our buffs and our sunglasses, I think, on trail.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
great questions. Amazing.
Yeah.
Really good
Thank
question.
you. And I also really like to hike with my buff too.
Nice.
Yeah, right? You know what's good.
And then I'd like to finish with my question, which is, I feel like you might be attempting something right now. And I wondered if you could tell us about what your current goal is and for this winter and what we have to look forward to as we're following you along.
Oh, totally. So Katie and I, right now, we are hiking all 46 in the winter. And we're doing it as day hikes. And we've already hiked 32 of the 46. And you can find us on YouTube. We actually have a YouTube channel started now where we talk about each of our days. And we're trying to finish in the next 2 weekends. So we should be done in 2 weeks and have they call it a single season winter round. So we've hiked them all in this winter starting December 21st, 2020.
That is fantastic. Well, I'll have to send me actually, I think I know your YouTube link. So I'll post that to our Facebook page so the girls can watch your adventures as you go. And that's so exciting. Good for you. And maybe we can come back on again later on to talk about what your winter experience has been in the 46ers. So.
Yes, it's very different.
Yes.
So it's a whole different story.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Congratulations again on your incredible accomplishment of doing that fastest known time. The FKT is a really, really big deal. So well done. Congratulations. And we're super excited to continue to follow along on your adventures. We're all about adventuring with Shredders.
Yes.
So it really is fun to hear about what you've done and where you're headed with it. So thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you for having us, and keep getting out there and going after it and tearing it up, and so great to see girls engaged.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you both. And so
Thank you.
Next week we have Kath Leonowens, who's going to talk to us about traveling around the world on her bicycle. She doesn't race bikes, she just brings her bike with her around the world and does really cool adventures in really interesting spots. So another fun adventure talk. So we'll see you next week. And thanks again, Katie and Bethany. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. Oh, Daddy, say goodbye.
Oh, bye.
Yeah, this is my doggy.